I know I start so many segments lately with a similar idea, which is we are seeing something now that you rarely see in American politics or just politics generally, which is a shift in momentum. So dramatic, it's hard to really process that it's happening. One person who's struggling to process that this is all happening is Donald Trump himself. And I have some reporting about behind the scenes, how much Trump is losing his mind over the fact that Harris is pulling ahead and his campaign seems to be collapsing. But for context, I do want to give you some of the data on this. The dramatic swing, it's not just a vibe, but as we've been following, it is showing up in the data. So before getting to how Trump's reacting to this, here is this.
CNN senior data reporter Harry Enten is here. So Harry, what's the simplest answer for why things have changed so much?
Sometimes I feel like we make these stories giantly complicated, and sometimes we can just simplify it by this. Who is better liked, right? What is the net favorable view of these different candidates? And, Donald Trump and J.D. Vance here, we know, I've been talking about J.D. Vance's net negative favorability rating. That is, more people view him unfavorably than favorably. Donald Trump has the same thing. I will point out this is among the higher numbers for Trump, but still, he's underwater here at -7 points. Jump over.
And this is from a New York Times Siena College poll specifically.
To the Democratic side with me, if you will. Take a look here. Kamala Harris is actually better liked by more voters than she is disliked at a +2 net favorable rating. And then Tim Walz here at a +11 rating. It's as simple as this. Politics is about being liked, and the Democratic ticket is better liked than the Republican ticket.
And this is, I know, doesn't look like much, but it's a different type of number than you've been seeing of late.
Yeah, very different. Normally, Joe Biden was, minus like 15 points oftentimes on occasion. So you're getting +2 on the Democratic side.
And that's a huge part of this. How does Harris's popularity compare to that of the Democratic ticket before with Biden on it? And that swing and her net favorability rating, as we've reviewed, her individual swing, not to mention the Democratic ticket swing, has been so sharp and so dramatic and happening in such a short period of time, it's truly difficult to get your head around. Now, going on from that particular subject onto this.
Look at this. We see Donald Trump at 50%. Look at Joe Biden at just 40%. So Donald Trump had a 10-point lead on the issue that folks said was most important to them. They could list any issue. Jump forward now to Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. What do we see? We see a completely different ballgame. We see Harris at 50%. We see Donald Trump at 48%. Within the margin of error, but a 10-point advantage for Trump. I mean, you're going, this is the type of stuff that campaigns dream about. And for the Donald Trump, nightmares about. Look at this. Harris now with the 2-point advantage. This is significant movement. This is the type of movement that turns losers, which Joe Biden was against Donald Trump, into winners, or at least leaders in the case of Kamala Harris over Donald Trump.
And again, we don't know which issue is most important to each.
Yeah, and we talked about in a previous segment how on the issue of the economy, who is trusted more in their handling of the economy for a super long time, all of the time I can remember. Trump had a lead on Biden on that issue. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't align with the facts, but it's something we've seen all too often. The Republican Party successfully branding themselves as the effective handlers of the economy, again, despite that not matching up with the records over the last 100 years. But that's been another area where going from trailing by like 10 points or something, then swinging, and now Harris is leading in voters' trust of the two candidates on the economy. She's more trusted than Trump is based on the polling. And that's also a really good sign because we know how much the economy plays into people's voting decisions. We are getting so close to one of the most important elections in history. If you appreciate the work that's being done in this important political moment from this show and you want to support it in an easy, free way, you can do so by clicking the subscribe button. Thank you so much. Back to the video. Then you have Frank Luntz speaking to this.
Try this. If this is an issue-based campaign, Trump still has the advantage. Not only am I not calling him out, she is winning right now. She is absolutely ahead. But we have ups and downs. This lead will go back and forth. But remember, this is happening before the convention. She's going to get a bounce from that convention, and she's getting pre-convention bounce. If it's about issues, Trump is much more likely to be successful. If it's about attributes, Harris is much more likely to be successful because, quite frankly, people like her more than they like him. It's something that if he's watching this right now, his head is exploding. And that's part of the problem. He has lost touch with the people that he needs, and she is in perfect touch. Look at the rallies. Look at how she relates to them. The challenge is what happens when she has a press conference. What happens when she faces people like you asking questions like yours? That's significant. She hasn't had to do it, and eventually she will be forced to do so.
Yeah, and we will see what comes of that. She has been answering questions. We'll look at this, if not in a segment today. We'll do it on the bonus show. But she has been answering some questions when she'll pass by reporters. But a full interview, that hasn't happened since she's been the nominee. A lot's been going on. It makes sense. She sort of needs to craft her whole policy proposal. A bunch of things normally you spend months doing before you announce a run. She's having to do rapidly, figuring out what the message is, where they're going to be campaigning, the strategy, all of it. And so putting this all together super quickly makes sense. She hasn't had a bunch of time for sit-down interviews, but that will happen soon, and it will be a major moment in the campaign. I have confidence in her ability to do so, though. So as you can see here, in so many ways, not to mention the metrics we've been discussing in other segments, Trump's campaign is slipping. They're losing control of the narrative. They're losing control of their own messaging. And apparently, Trump's behavior has been so unhinged lately because of this that the people around him are confused. Axios reports, don't buy the public bravado. Former President Trump's advisors are deeply rattled by his meandering, mean, and often middling public performance since the failed assassination attempt. They're pleading with him to adopt a new hard-hitting stump speech to define Vice President Harris as liberal and weak, advisors tell us, and praying he'll stop the recidivistic pull to simply improvise haphazardly. Why it matters, Trump, who looked and felt like a clear frontrunner heading into last month's Republican convention, has fumed, stewed, and stumbled in private and public ever since. And it goes through different examples. Trump is struggling to get past his anger, a source says. Trump aides know he won't change because he can't change. And other details, we did get New York Times reporting as well, saying, indeed, Mr. Trump has often been in a foul mood the past few weeks. He has ranted about Ms. Harris. He's called her nasty on Fox and Friends and a B word repeatedly in private, according to two people who heard the remark on different occasions. His quickness to anger has left him susceptible to manipulation, even among close allies. And they give a particular example of him just angry and sending off angry texts to a donor, a big dollar donor who wasn't acting the ways that he wanted her to. So the point is, he's losing grip. He wasn't ever that in control, as we know, but he had a little bit more campaign discipline in that there was a more consistent and clear and unfortunately effective message against Biden. Something about Harris's campaign added, or just Harris being the nominee, I should say, added with the energy and momentum around that campaign, is sending Trump into a complete and total spiral. Calling her the B word in private. Alienating and attacking people who are donating money to him, causing a situation where his campaign officials are worried he's going to push them out and they're not going to donate to him anymore, which would put him in an even worse situation politically and financially. And all of this, really, as people have mentioned over and over, analysts, because he doesn't have the discipline or the self-control to craft and then deliver what would still be, let's be honest, a dishonest campaign message against Harris, but a more level-headed and effective one. He could. I've said it before, I don't really want to do this because it would be helping MAGA, but I can come up with much better attack lines they could be using against Harris than the ones they are. Questioning her identity, that's only helping Harris, causing people to sympathize with her. Questioning the military record of her vice president, that's only helping their ticket, making you look unhinged. But there are other things you could be attacking her on. You're choosing not to because Trump doesn't have the self-control. He's too easily triggered right now. And as Chris Christie said, when he's desperate politically, he loses all ability to stay on a message and he goes back to the worst, most vile instincts that he has. And that's why we've been seeing the race baiting again. That's why we've been seeing these sorts of childish attacks, saying she has low IQ. Things that, again, only serve to help her campaign, pushing people towards her. Not to mention what she's doing to pull people towards her. And regardless, he continues on. And we've been seeing publicly signs of how panicked he is. But again, this reporting and much more is indicating behind the scenes is even worse. And Axios is saying, as I told you, that his aides are around him thinking, what's going on? But this is the guy you've chosen to work for. So deal with it. Let me know what you thought of that in the comments. If you want to get extra content daily, you can do so by clicking the join button below.